Hey, what's up, guys? We're here with our third insert of the training course. Hope you guys enjoyed the previous where we were working with the detailing of the head. And please do share what you guys have done and created. Put it in the description for you guys that have access. Well, you'll be the only ones to see this. Anyway, so in this section, we'll just move on a little bit to the torso blocking out. And well, without any further ado, let's get into it, shall we? Alrighty. Okay, guys, so let's get started with working on our torso. This tutorial in particular, this training session is going to be for the torso. What we'll do is we'll block out the whole torso in this tutorial, and within the next two tutorials do the detailing of the front, and then the tutorial after that do the detailing of the back. Then you can kind of follow through with them at your own pace. When you start off working, I realized that for myself is that it took me a while to get used to things. You know, you don't sculpt as quickly as a lot of these tutorials out there make it look like. You know, like you can flip and create this Michelangelo masterpiece in like 20 seconds. That's nonsense. It's crap. It takes a while. You get used to it. You need to play with the brushes. It takes a long time to get used to this. And if you can get it done quickly, then you know you're like a prodigy. You know what I mean? So you can pat yourself on the back if it's really simple and easy for you. Then you're blessed. So some people are lucky that way. God decided, hey, I'm gonna like you a bit more than the others. No, I'm kidding. It's just that He prefers to give you that gift over another. But anyway, let's get into it. Let me not ramble on. The rounded cube. Okay, this is our starting sphere every single time when we sculpt. It's similar to the exact same cube that you get with when you go into the sculpt mode. When you're starting off and say I want to get into sculpt mode, and it gives you a sphere, a shape. That's actually a rounded cube because it consists of quads. If you notice, when you bring in the sphere, it's got like triangulation on it, which I can't show you. But anyway, radius, basically you've got a 0 to 1, well, I guess 0.01 to 1 kind of working scale. Anything after that, then it just kind of scales over and above and just makes it larger. But basically it's 0 to 1. Take my word for it. 0 to 1. At 1, it'll round it up into a perfect sphere, and then from there you're just pretty much scaling it up. And then 4 is the number of subdivisions. So you'll see it's written arc divisions. I don't know why they called arc divisions. Yeah, maybe, you know, something to do with power, or it's designed for modeling arches, you know, arc power. I've got no freaking clue, as you can tell. But yeah, arc, if you put this to any value, I'd say work with a value at about 20. I know it seems really dense, but you really want to have good control over your mesh while you work. And the default sphere actually comes with way more subdivisions, maybe like up to 25. Let me actually see what that looks like. Yeah, no, definitely more. So the default sphere comes with even more than that. So I mean, you're still working with fairly low poly meshes, which is quite good. You won't be overclocking your machine in any way. It should be able to sustain this even if you don't have the best PC in the world. Alright, so with that done and said and mentioned, like I said, we'll go in depth. This will be kind of like your one-stop shop for sculpting, and your general, you know, feel around the sculpting process in Blender and the interface. I just want you guys to have as little hassle as possible and not have to jump around to too many tutorials and other people's tutorials to get this done. Although feel free to check them out. There are many brilliant sculptors out there, but this is in this course you'll get more than enough to be able to do this part of the job fairly well. Alright, cool, let's get started. Okay, front view, and we zoom in slightly and control tab. Oh, sorry, I don't have my screencast keys on for you. Whoa, wrong button. Screencasts active, as you can see them there in our bottom left corner. As always, press control, hold control, press tab. It'll open the dialog menu for which mode you want to be in, and we shall switch to the sculpt mode. I noticed I didn't explain that to you guys in the previous one, but like I said, I don't want to go too much into actually, you know, explaining the interface entirely. just more the stuff that will be far more relevant to you. And if you want to have like an intermediate course on just your general interface and working around it, let me know in the comments and I'll do so. And make sure our X symmetry is active, and select our sphere. Since we are kind of shaping out the torso, we generally know and have an idea of how it looks. There we go. There are many ways you could go about this, and for that, by the way, it's that weird ellipsis snake thing. I don't know what to call it, above your tab button. I should have done research on this. I promise in the next tutorial you will know exactly what that button is called. So we kind of block in a little bit of that chest area, where we'll have our pectorals, and then that's where the diaphragm will start, going downward. Bring the back in a little bit, give it a decent form, and it will have a slight dip into it. Nobody's body is kind of like a perfect like singular straight line. It's not a thing. It doesn't work that way. The spine is always S-shaped, at least I'd like to think so, unless you've got some kind of deformity, which is nothing to laugh about, but just saying, just always assume that this will have kind of a slight of an S shape. Anyway, there we go. Alright, so we've got our basic block out of the top half of it. There are many ways you can go about this. You can divide it into 3 as well, which makes it easier, but for this, just follow along with exactly how I'm doing it. There's no one way to get things done, and if you notice, when you shift add, when you press your shift add and you bring in your rounded cube, it automatically comes with your previous subdivisions and settings, which makes life like flipping remarkably easier. So yeah, that's there's a bit of a bonus to this kind of workflow. And as always, have your anatomy open. I'm doing this with you right now with like anatomy studies that are open, just to keep to ensure that I'm always working as accurately as possible. It's always best to just work that way. Never feel like you know too much. Like they say, most people, you end up messing up with your job because you get too comfortable with the fact that I know how to do it, and you become negligent, and that's how you'll mess up. So don't let yourself get to a negligent, arrogant spot. Just always keep learning. Always come as if you're just starting to learn the thing for the first time. That's always a good approach. It's good character. And there we go. Symmetry is back and active, and we're just gonna mark out just our leg sockets. Leg sockets are going up to the obliques. I just like to have a good idea of that before I go too far into the sculpt and the modeling of it. These actually shouldn't be all that high, now that I think about it, considering the example that I have as well. Okay, like I said, it's very good to keep reference images with you, work with reference. And one thing to notice is that the top end, in terms of where your thigh will kind of be connected, your leg will come and connect. On the side, your buttocks end of your body will always drag lower than the front. Your ass cheeks generally sit lower than your groin area, like just that little area of skin just beneath the sack or other parts. Yeah, so you want to drag out the back end a little bit more than the front is. It'll make it look awesome, I promise you. And there we go, and there's the back there, and we've got our pretty, hold up, there I am, just making sure. Let's go into front view, jump back into our sculpt mode here. Just want to get it to be as in line as possible, as ready for bouillioning as possible. I'm sure you should be familiar with the process of bouillon by now, and if not, that's alright. I'll I will show you in this tutorial, because that's generally how we will work. We keep working. There we go. Alright, so, and it's that easy. There's our torso blocked out. You don't need anything more than that, to be dead honest. You should be able to get a good sculpt with this, if you have a good grasp of your anatomy studies. And we go into the modifiers tab, and under generate a boolean, set it to union, select the eyedropper that's just in the object dialog box, the ink dropper, to highlight which object you want to join it to, and we shall select it, and there we have one solid form. If you notice, the highlight went all the way around, and we come here on the drop down, can click apply or hover over it and click Control A. By the way, with the modifiers, if you're not hovering over that exact modifier, let's say if you had multiple, let me just do this quickly, multiple modifiers, and we had, let's just say for example, a subdivision surface. Now if we worked in this manner, like for example, now I need to apply these. If I'm not hovering over it exactly, you'll notice when I did that, Control Z, consider the icon and how the boolean one looks compared to the subdivision. Hovering over this and press Control A, even though this one is the highlighted in blue, you'd think it's selected, it's not really. So you need to hover over the exact one you want to apply before you do so. So union, that's been selected, it's set to exact, which is perfect. Sometimes you might have problems with this. You'll get artifacts, and then instead of exact you might want to switch it to fast, and just kind of troubleshoot it a bit. In this case, other than switching to fast, keep it on exact, and if it gives you problems, come into this drop down where it says solver options and click self. When you click on self, it will automatically do it perfectly if there are any issues on it, and that's about it. So Control A, apply the boolean, and now we have an extra object here, which is the lower part of the torso, which we can delete pressing X and delete on the keyboard, and perfect. Now I think this part I will show you because it shouldn't necessarily be in the more detailed detailing tutorial of this part of the training. So I'll just kind of show you how to smooth these in and get the UVs to be more or less of similar length, of similar scale. And the usual method, the one I showed you in the previous one, let's work with the most common method, Shift R, and build in some topology, have a decent amount so we can kind of work well with this. I don't think we need it to be all that super detailed. So if you remember from the previous tutorial of how to go about it, so now they kind of equaled out. So if we hold Shift and we kind of just smooth this down so we don't have this weird sharp edge to our blocking out at all. There we go. And it seems like it's not all that much work, is it, guys? Not at all. And there we go. And what we're just gonna do here, maybe I should wait, let me leave this for the next tutorial. Actually, let me just leave it for the next tutorial. Essentially with this as is, well, I'm sure you all agree, we kind of are ready to work with our model. Then we will apply the multi-res as we did before, subdivide again, just so we can add some decent detailing. And as you can see, it remains low poly, although once we start sculpting we'll be able to add much to it. And if you were to simplify your general areas of where the volume will come, so we'll use the clay strips brush. When you hover over the brushes, by the way, you'll see what the shortcuts are. Some of these shortcuts, I mean, you can obviously modify them for yourself. Personally, I think they're a little bit too complicated to work with sometimes. Like, it doesn't really switch between them all that easy. It just takes a little too much as far as I'm concerned. So I prefer to sometimes just click on it, except for the easier ones where, like with the draw brush, it's just X and it works. Not all of them are like that, so yeah, you gotta make do with what you've got. So clay strips, we'll just quickly block out the pectorals, and there we go. And we can block out the upper abdomen. So there's a group set of muscles there, you know. With males, they are generally long, but remember, like I said to you before, that you would think there's a set rule for how to do this, but there actually isn't. The human body comes with many different forms, even in ways that you wouldn't expect. So there's a generic way, yes, to sculpt, but there's nothing set in stone. Not all of us are formed this way. Your muscles form based on your use of them individually. So when you palpate, if you have somebody that has, you know, moves in specific angles more than other angles, the muscles will develop differently on that body. So like you said, there's general rules of, okay, those generally how you can sculpt a body, but there's nothing set in stone to say there's one way to do it. Human beings differ because we do different things. We are as our environments are, basically. Easiest way to explain it. And so, for example, actually let me show you, like here with this, with some people it would just be these four muscles, and then you'd have like these smaller, the upper bicep, the upper abdominis muscles would be like a thin strip that lies just on the diaphragm line, made up of four pecs and four abdominal sections, and then like your lower abdominis section, which is the one with the navel on it, you know. So that's a type of form. You can sculpt the human body like that, and it's perfect, you know. So sorry, it's not in the center. That's your basics of the torso. But for the sake of this, we'll go with, let's do this. Let's go with a 3-sectioned torso, which is kind of I guess the most common, the generic one that everybody creates. I kind of liked the previous one. This kind of, we're gonna get into like anime territory kind of working. Change to the grab brush and scale it super large, just so we can extend here. Come up into the pectorals, drag them back up a little bit, and there we go. And let's switch back to the clay strips, reduce the brush, and we can now add in those lower abdominis muscles that connect to our obliques and down into the pubis. Yeah. So essentially, there we have it. That's our block out. Now from here, the obliques form out this way, and by the way, the muscle structure itself flows downward. So if you create a little bit of that flow, it'll make it look a little bit better when you smooth it out. Because if you don't smooth it out perfectly, what you'll do is you'll notice that you'll have these beautiful, once you start texturing, there's like these beautiful random like imperfections of like muscle streaks that will stand out, and you know, it'll kind of make it feel a little bit more human-y, you know, a little more realistic. And there we have it. And then here we go. Let me just switch to another reference image that I have. Like I said, it's very important to work with reference images. It's how you will improve and get better at your craft, and you know, just be able to show off your skills a lot better when you have the knowledge. Knowledge is power. And like there, now we're following the muscle streaks. Initially we're just doing it to get volume, just to have an idea of where the pectorals would sit. Okay, there we go. And then we have the rib cage lines. That's the upper lines, which is a very slim one, and you've got the one slightly beneath it. Ooh, there we go, which is slightly larger. Let me just use control and middle mouse zoom. It'll kind of zoom a little bit better. square bracket left, and we can reduce the brush size, and square bracket right will increase it, and these will change direction as we go downward, and the detailing won't be as intense as it seems right now. This is just so we can have a good understanding of the anatomy and how to put it together, but essentially we'll be smoothing out a lot of this. We'll be smoothing it down, but the reason why you want to sculpt it up so intensely is that you can have that option to turn your character into like this mega ripped character, or you know, just a chilled, happy-go-lucky character. I don't know, like, you know, normal human beings, not Avenger muscles, Captain America type of body, but kind of like us normal dorky nerds, man. Although I'm fairly well built, I must say. I take care of the temple, so I might be a little bit of a hypocrite there. But yeah, there we go, and there we add the last rib. By the way, in terms of these, I don't know if I want to explain this to you. I just feel like I should leave some stuff for it to be a challenge for you to go and learn, instead of just kind of feeding everything. But the way the muscles join here is that between each of the, you have your rib lines. In between each rib line connecting there is another set of muscle tissue that flows to the front, which forms, I guess, a part of your abdominal muscle tissue, and these all align with your front abdominal muscles. So the frontal abdominals, the muscle that connects up here, is the exact same length as the very abdominal muscle you have here. So these all flow like that, and then you have like fat tissue, and which is like superficial muscle. And by the way, fat is actually considered muscle tissue, if you didn't know. Yeah, so that will fill up all these gaps. Then you'll have your skin, so you won't really notice these unless you're like uber ripped. But there we go. Now we have it, and that's our front, the front of our character blocked out. I'll check you guys in the next tutorial. Cheers. Alright, oh, and before we forget, let's just block out the detailing from the back. Add in our trapezius in its form. Trapezius flows generally all the way from the shoulders and down to the center of the back. That's just a generalization, by the way. And then flow out. Let me just quickly change my reference image just to make sure I don't botch it up. And there we go. And this would be the joining part to our deltoids. And from here, what we can do is add in just a little bit of volume here, where we're gonna join in to where we join into our neck area. And in general, I mean, you don't need to add too much of this, but if you were gonna go super detailed, and this was a something wrong with my holding down shift. I don't know what's going on, but that's fine. Can find ways around that. So then in general, this would be the flow of the fibers, the muscle tissue, the muscle fibers. So that's our trapezius done. Sorry, I think I was holding caps lock there accidentally. Okay, then we have our deltoids, which generally we have our non-superficial deltoid muscles. Then you have kind of, I mean, there's a couple of layers to skin in itself, to the layers of the human skin on the back. So these rhomboids, sorry, I think I might have not said rhomboids. That's the rhomboid area and its flow. which will be far easier to detail once we add the arms in, but that's fine, we can ignore that for now. Then we have some muscle tissue to add in just to the side and complete our look here. But just I like to work with reference. I just want to switch the right image just to make sure that we get a nice and semi-perfect sculpt going on. There we go. So we go from there, let it flow downward, and it will cover most of this back end of the muscles there. There we go. That's looking good. Of the rib cage, and then as it flows, just like with the trapezius having its bulge, this part bulges kind of alongside the trapezius. I don't know if you can notice that. It's bulging alongside the trapezius and then up towards its side there, but then generally remains so it continues with that dip in the spine. Sorry about that. Yeah, it'll continue with the dip in the spine, but towards the top it bulges generally separately. Okay, let's just switch to another reference image, just a little bit of a better one. Make sure we have everything in order and in check. And as you remember with our deltoids, which we had, so the muscle fibers would be then flowing just like that. But that's a little X more than we need to have added. There we go. Now we're adding our superficial muscles, more of them to the top. Just filling out that form. And okay, now there we have it. That's our full character block art for the torso and the pectoral area. We'll add in a lot more of this detailing much later on, by the way. For now, this will work perfectly. There we go. Alright, well, I'll see you guys in the next video then. Till then, ta-ta.